run you through a similar exercise but slightly different practice. So the idea is quite similar in terms of trying to capture and map the context in which we're working. So there's a lot of parallels to the ecology of resources, but the technique is slightly different. And for this technique, I'm going to ask you to unless you're very crafty using sort of digital drawing tools, I think the best way would be to do it with a piece of paper. So just clear the table and grab an A1 piece of paper and some markers. But first, the context of this exercise is what I call a design scenario, which is slightly different than what Katerina meant by scenario, I think, because my design scenario is a way of thinking forward and describing a learning challenge and the way, one possible way of addressing that challenge. And within the design scenario framework, a force map is a tool that I've used to represent the context. So the idea is to give a graphical representation of the different forces that define the problem space. Now, what I'm going to ask you to do, I try to kind of outline this in 4 simple steps, although step 4 is broken down into another 4 steps. But this is the first step. The first thing I want you to do is you have probably the best medium for this is these Post-its, right? So you think about the actors, the people involved in the MOOC. Okay, so these would be students, teachers, various people in the institutions who might have vested interest in the MOOC. Okay, so again, each one of you coming from your own context, to think about the people that you see involved from your perspective in the MOOC, whether it's students from your institution or staff in your institution or anyone you could see, envision that would be involved in it. So that's the first step. The second step would be to think about the targets. And I just use the word targets to try to avoid goals, aims, objectives, because there's I suppose targets is just as loaded as anything else. But if you think about learning objectives, there's a whole vocabulary about how you should and should not phrase learning objectives and so on. So what I want to say is, let's try to avoid anything too rigorous in terms of this is the way you phrase it. Just think about, basically, what do you think these actors that you've described in the first step want to achieve through their participation or their involvement in the MOOC. And the next step would be to think about the material, social, and intentional factors that connect between the actors and the targets. And after you do that, you put, basically, you take, like I said, a piece of paper, you put your actors on one side, and you put the targets on the other side, and you put the various factors that you've identified between them, and you draw lines, and you draw lines that represent the links between the actors, the different elements in the context, and the targets, and annotate those links. So say, well, this is a supporting link, so add a plus and say, okay, that's why it's strengthened, and this is where I have a conflict or a tension, so mark that as a minus. Right? So again, I'll just go back here, and I seriously suggest you just remove everything electronic from the table and start playing with paper.